You've been performing for so long, you forgot who you were before the applause. You don't need a new identity. You need to come home to the one you abandoned. It's time to change the narrative. It's time to recognize who you are. You are not an imposter. You are not a mistake. You are not a placeholder in your own life. You didn't wake up one day and decide to become an imposter. You didn't choose self-doubt. You didn't choose to shrink. You didn't choose to question your belonging every time you stepped into a new room. Somewhere along the way, a role was handed to you, a script, a set of expectations, a silent agreement about who you were allowed to be and who you were not. And without even realizing it, you started living by it. You started honoring a contract you never signed. For some of you, that contract started in childhood. You were the responsible one, the achiever, the fixer, the one who didn't need anything, the one who held everything together. And when you grow up in those roles long enough, you start to believe that your worth is tied to how well you perform them. For others, the contract came from culture, from being told not to be too loud, too confident, too ambitious, too visible. You learned that shrinking kept the peace. You learned that dimming your light made other people more comfortable. You learned that blending in felt safer than standing out. And then there are the workplaces, the environments that benefited from your silence, your overperformance, your self-doubt. They praised your perfectionism. They rewarded your burnout. They normalized your exhaustion. And you internalize all of it as professionalism. But here's the truth. You didn't choose the imposter identity. It was assigned to you, and you've been carrying it like it's yours to keep. Most people don't even realize they're carrying it. They think they're being humble. They think they're being cautious. They think they're being realistic. They think they're just not ready yet. But humility is not the same as self-erasure. Caution is not the same as fear. Realism is not the same as self-doubt. And not ready is often just another way of saying, I don't feel allowed. Your brain, by the way, is not the villain here. It's doing what it was trained to do, protect you. Even if the protection is outdated, even if the protection is limiting, even if the protection is keeping you small, the brain loves familiarity. It loves patterns. It loves predictability. So even when you step into rooms you prayed for, even when you get opportunities you earn, even when you're finally seen, finally valued, finally recognized, your brain pulls out that old contract and whispers, stay small. Don't mess this up. You're not ready. They're going to find out. You don't belong here. And sometimes the contract doesn't just whisper, it shouts. It shows up as anxiety. It shows up as procrastination. It shows up as overthinking. It shows up as perfectionism. It shows up as over preparing. It shows up as people pleasing. It shows up as silence when you should speak. It shows up as shrinking when you should stand tall. It shows up as I'm fine when you're not. That's not intuition. That's not humility. That's conditioning. That's the old contract talking. And here's something else we don't talk about enough. Sometimes the contract doesn't just shape how you see yourself. It shapes how you let others treat you. When you've been conditioned to believe you must earn your place, you tolerate environments that drain you. You tolerate relationships that take more than they give. You tolerate leaders who benefit from your silence. You tolerate workloads that would break most people. And you call it being a team player or being dependable or being strong. But the truth is, you've been honoring a contract that tells you your needs are secondary, your boundaries are optional, and your voice is negotiable. That is not strength. That is survival, and you deserve more than survival. There's also the emotional cost of the contract, the exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring yourself, the way you rehearse conversations in your head before you speak, the way you double check your work even when you know it's correct, the way you downplay your accomplishments so no one thinks you're arrogant, the way you apologize for things that don't require an apology, the way you shrink your joy so you don't make anyone uncomfortable. This constant self-surveillance is draining. It's like living with an internal supervisor who never clocks out. And the saddest part is that many people don't even realize how heavy that burden is until they finally put it down. And let's talk about the grief that comes with breaking the contract. Because yes, there is grief. When you stop performing the role you were assigned, you will lose some things. You may lose approval. You may lose predictability. You may lose the comfort of being who people expect you to be. You may even lose relationships that were built on your willingness to stay small. But grief is not a sign you're doing something wrong. Grief is a sign you're releasing something that was never meant to be permanent. You are not losing yourself. You are losing the version of you that was created for someone else's convenience. There's also a moment, and you'll know it when it happens, when the old contract tries to pull you back. It will show up right when you start expanding, right when you start speaking up, right when you start taking up space, right when you start choosing yourself. The old contract will whisper, "Who do you think you are?" And I want you to answer it with the truth. I am who I've always been. I'm just no longer hiding. That moment is powerful. That moment is identity reclaiming itself. That moment is you stepping into alignment with the person you were always meant to be. And as you grow, you'll notice something else. The world responds differently when you stop shrinking. Opportunities that once felt out of reach start to feel natural. Conversations that once intimidated you become easier. Rooms that once made you feel small start to feel like places you belong. Not because the rooms change, but because you did. You stopped negotiating your worth. You stopped apologizing for your presence. You stopped performing for acceptance. You stopped living by a contract that was never written with your liberation in mind. And finally, I want you to understand this. Rewriting your contract is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a daily decision, a commitment to yourself. Some days you will feel powerful and grounded and clear. Other days, the old contract will feel louder. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Growth is not linear. It's layered. But every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you choose visibility over shrinking, every time you choose truth over fear, you reinforce the new contract. You strengthen the new identity. You build the muscle of belonging. And eventually, the old contract stops calling your name because it no longer fits the person you've become. So ask yourself, what role am I still performing that no longer fits who I am? Whose approval am I still chasing? What fear shows up when I imagine being fully seen? And what part of me feels like I'm getting away with something when I succeed? That feeling, that tension, that quiet panic that someone is going to tap you on the shoulder and expose you, that is the contract trying to keep you in line. But here's the shift. You do not break a contract by thinking about it. You break it by choosing differently. You break it by telling the truth. I don't have to earn my belonging. I don't have to shrink to be accepted. I don't have to overperform to be valued. I don't have to be perfect to be worthy. I don't have to carry everything alone. You break it by practicing visibility, by practicing asking for help, by practicing boundaries, by practicing being seen without apologizing for it. You break it by letting yourself evolve. And I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need permission to be who you already are. So if the old contract is revoked, what does the new one say? It says, I belong here because I'm here. My voice matters because it's mine. I am allowed to grow beyond the roles I was assigned. I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to be powerful. I am allowed to be whole. Your new contract is self-authored, self-defined, self-aligned, and it starts today. Not when you feel ready, not when you feel confident, not when you stop being afraid. Today, because you've spent enough years honoring a contract that never honored you back. This is your moment to unmask, to reclaim, to belong, to step into the identity you were always meant to live in. Your new contract is waiting, and this time you're the one writing it. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin the work of separating who you are from who you've been performing to be, because it's time to stop performing and start belonging. Welcome to the work. Welcome to the becoming. Welcome to unmasking the imposter. Thank you for listening to the Impostor Phenomenon Podcast. If today's episode opened something in you, share it with someone who needs this conversation too. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready to go deeper, get ready to join our community, where we're doing the real work of reclaiming identity, rewriting narratives, and rebuilding belonging from the inside out. Remember, you are not an imposter. You are not a mistake. You are the author, and your story is far from finished.